It's Transforce96 here with another video review. This time we have from the DC Collectibles Films Premium line Superman from Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. So going over the package here, I really do like the design of this packaging. I think it's quite nice. You get a nice picture of the figure on the side. On the back you get the two figures from this first wave, Armored Batman and Superman. I do have the Armored Batman and I've reviewed him as well. So let's get on to the Superman figure. So before we go into the actual figure, let's go over some of his accessories. You get 3 sets of hands, 1 pair of fists, 1 pair of relaxed palms, and then 1 pair of gesturing aggressive hands. I do like the assortment of hands. Maybe ones that are more in kind of like a saluting pose would be good for like classic Superman flying poses. I think that's really necessary, but other than that, I do like the assortment of hands. And here's the base that seems to be the standard for this DC Films Premium line. I do like the design of the base. I think it looks quite nice. I like how large it is, because it is pretty large. And then I do also like that the edges go out a bit more, and then they kind of come into a point here. It just kind of looks nice. Now, what I don't like about it is just all the holes on it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I could kind of see like doing one at the front, one at the back, something like that. But just to have so many like spots and ports for to plug this thing in is just ridiculous. I mean, it's kind of nice if you wanted to pose like 2 people on it at once. I kind of get the point, but I really wish that they at least slimmed down some of these points. Maybe just put a point like on each corner so it looked more like a stylized choice rather than a functional choice, but yet it was still functional. That would have been quite nice, but instead they put just some in some of the corners and then they put some in the middle, and I mean it looks a little ridiculous, so I'm quite disappointed by that. I like their idea of it, but it just isn't executed well. And then he does come with this stand. It's meant to hold it. So obviously this is just in there on a peg so you can move it around. It has a hinge here, hinge here, hinge here, and then it can also swivel up here, and then this can open up where you can put in the figure, and it's on a spring so that that'll basically hold it firmly. As far as these bases go, I mean, they seem to be pretty sturdy at the moment. Most of the bases that like have a flight pole to them that I've found that aren't Hot Toys, usually they get weak after a while, and then usually you have to try to screw the screws back in to kind of strengthen them a bit more. I've had a lot of trouble with bases like this in the past, so I am a little bit worried about this one. However, I do like the design of this base. Wish that a few things were changed, but I still think that it's pretty decent, and I love the size of it. That's my favorite part about it. So it is quite nice for this line. I do hope they continue to give this to every character, like even Harley Quinn, even non-flying characters. I really do want them to have a unified base. I think that to have a base that's the same for all of them is quite nice. And as you can see, the base can fully support Superman in a flying position. It feels quite stable and really worked great with Superman in particular because of his flying nature. Alright, moving on to the figure, first thing that I want to talk about is the cape. I actually really enjoy this style of cape. Some people might prefer just a regular cloth cape so that it'll hang nicely. I really much prefer a wired cape. I think that those are always they're much better because they're fun, and they make even just the simple poses seem so much more aggressive and just really dynamic. But his cape is quite nice. As you can see, it's quite long as well. It's quite a big cape. I love the way that it wrinkles up and it folds. I think that it looks really natural in most positions. I will say that it's a very different material as opposed to the Armored Batman one. The Armored Batman one has more of a rougher one. It makes like a sloshing sound when you like kind of rub it. This one is more of a cloth. I mean, this is like a full-on cloth one that does have a wire that starts up here and comes down the entire side of the cape. One thing that I would have liked is for them to actually have wired this part of the cape too. It might be, more of a pain to kind of pose it. It definitely would be, but I think that it would really help for just insanely dynamic poses. I would love one day for them just to do a full-out cape. They like on even each of these little pieces they have like a wire in there just so you can go crazy with it. That would be super cool actually. But I really do like this cape. You can completely put it in a ton of really cool unique poses. It works fantastic for any position, because no matter what position that you put Superman in, having wind blow through the cape is just going to make it look better anyway. So I do really love the way that they've designed their capes, and it might be my favorite aspect of these figures, which is unfortunate considering the regular Batman is the only other Films Premium figure that's coming out set that has a cape. Unfortunately, they did cancel Feora, General Zod, and Jor-El, all of which would have had capes and would have been awesome as well. So that's a shame, but I am still very happy that both Armored Batman and Superman have those really cool capes. Alright, so onto the actual figure here. As you can see with the face sculpt, looking quite good. I think that it actually does have a fairly decent likeness to Henry Cavill as Superman in the films, especially like straight on. I think that looks really solid. From the size, it kind of loses it a bit, but I still, for the scale, I think it's a decent head sculpt. It's quite good. The paint on the hair is nice. They've kind of gone with like a black or a charcoal gray, and then washed a bit of brown into it. Looks decent. They didn't do. I mean, there's sculpting throughout the hair, but they didn't do anything too extreme. So it seems quite mellow. The face sculpt, as far as the paint on the face, is pretty decent. They went with a very pale, just skin tone. Not much definition going on with the skin tone. However, it still looks good. You've got blue eyes. I wish that the pupils were a bit bigger because it's a little hard to see them. It kind of just looks like he has just, the white of his eyes and then just blue at the center. It's really hard to see any black in the center of those blue, but there is a bit of it. Then you have the eyebrows, which are painted nicely. There's a bit of like a speckle on his lip, unfortunately, on my copy, which is annoying, but it is something quite minor, I will say. He does have a second head sculpt, so let me show you that. And here's the alternative head. As you can see, I love the idea of it. Having like a laser blast head, I think is fantastic. It's something that really we don't get from other Superman figures, or at least other movie Superman figures. So I think that the idea is awesome, and I was very excited for it. The execution on it is extremely poor, though. First of all, just the sculpt itself is almost identical to the regular one. I think that they used the same sculpt. They just did one with, holes in his eyes, basically. Which is a shame, because, I mean, when he's shooting lasers, I want some real expression there. I want some angriness. I want to see some teeth. So, very disappointed that he comes with this very lackluster just expression for shooting lasers. And then the lasers themselves look nice, but just the way they're done is really poor. First of all, it's insanely hard to get them in his face because these things are super fragile, so you can't like hold the end of it to try to put it in. It's incredibly hard to do, and it was just such a pain for me. So, look forward to that when you're putting in the lasers there. And then they're not straight. I mean, I don't really see how they could have fixed this, because you really can't have them connected unless you just want like a Cyclops blast. But they're really not straight at all. It's definitely a shame. Maybe I would have had them like come together and like done some like kind of explosion at the end there. That would look really cool, and it would solve the problem of them, going opposite ways. But it's a shame the way they did it. I mean, it just looks awful. They're going two separate ways, and in person it just looks even worse. I mean, it looks like he's looking two separate ways. So really love the idea of this thing, just it's executed so poorly that it was really just not even worth doing, unfortunately. As for the rest of the body, as you can see, it's sculpted very nicely. You do have wonderful detail throughout the suit. There's obviously that patterning that goes throughout it in both Man of Steel and Dawn of Justice. Do like the way that the Superman symbol has been painted. The blue that they went with is quite nice. It's a darker blue, but it's kind of like a lighter shade of it, which does look good. I would have almost wished that they went with something even darker than this, though, just because maybe on set or something this is more similar to the suit color. But on film, the DC films have such a kind of like a dark filter that go through them. So it really, in the films he has a much deeper blue that's very dark. So I would have definitely liked to see that in this figure a lot more than this kind of light color. It still looks nice. I mean, this is certainly undeniably Superman's color. It's just not 100% accurate, I would say, to how it looks on screen. And the line work on it is in a metallic blue, so I do like that they've changed up the shades of blue that they went with. That looks quite good. As far as articulation, that's another big feature of this new series from DC Collectibles. The articulation is quite good. He's got a ball joint at the top of the neck. He's going to look up about that far, can look down just ever so slightly, and he can look side to side, can tilt his head. He also has another ball joint at the base of the neck, which is a bit harder to use, but it does allow you to get a bit of extra movement in there. There you go. It mainly actually just goes kind of side to side. It's kind of hard to get it to go up and down, though. Oh, there you go. Yeah, if you really push it, yeah, you can go up quite far, which is definitely really nice for Superman, considering he flies, obviously. So that is good. As far as the shoulders go, you know, the preview images of this guy looked really bad. The shoulders looked awful. It looked like he had like big like ball shoulders and then more ball shoulders right here. They have fixed that completely though. The butterfly joint has been pushed into his body a lot more, so it doesn't look like he has two shoulders, which is nice. But he does obviously have that butterfly joint, so it can go in and out a bit. Ball hinge shoulders, which work quite nicely. He's got swivel biceps, double hinge elbows, which can bend like completely, very nice. He has hinge swivel wrists, so he can obviously hinge his wrists in quite nicely, and they can hinge out as well. And it's at a swivel at the bottom of the arm as well as at the actual hand, which is good. He has ball jointed torso. At this top piece, you know, it doesn't have too much range. It can really tilt nicely, and it can go back a bit and it can go forward a bit. So you do have like a full ball joint in this area, but it's really kind of hindered throughout. Then you have a second ball joint though at the waist. This one is more free, can go back further, it can go forward a bit, and then it can side to side. So on their own, both of these joints aren't super extreme. However, together they do really help, and they're quite good. Then he has ball jointed hips, which have a really special thing, is that there's a ball joint in the hip and then a pin that goes into the actual body here that can allow you to drop down the legs. This is very similar to what Hot Toys does with most of their modern Iron Man figures, and this is probably like the first time, this series is the first time I've seen it done on just regular figures, which is really nice. So it allows you to kick his leg up much further than if it was just, you know, if it was up here, this is about as far of a kick as you can get, but with being able to lower it, you can kick it up way further. Oh, look at that. If you move it out to the side, you can really get some extreme kicks in there. Really nice. That should be really cool with Harley Quinn, putting her in some acrobatic poses like that. That would be nice. Then you have a swivel at the thigh, double hinge knees, which work really nicely. I will say that the joints on Batman feel very tight. They certainly don't feel loose on Superman, but they don't feel as tight as Batman. They're still very good, though. I wouldn't worry about it. It's just, it would have been nice if they were even tighter, because I feel like these are such fun figures that I'm going to be posing them a lot. I'd hate for any of the joints to get a little loose. As far as the ankles go, it can hinge forward a bit. I would like a little bit more extreme than this. It can go up just ever so slightly, and then to be able to get it to a pivot, you have to kind of like move the joint inside of there to kind of pivot it. It's very annoying, I will say. I'd much rather them do it like they did with the Armored Batman, that just had a separate a separate pin in there that allowed it to pivot. But still quite nice. So this figure, I really have to say, is great. Let me give you some size comparisons here. Alright, so going with the Mattel version of Superman from the Man of Steel line, as you can see, it's much smaller. This is definitely a larger scale. It's in a 7-inch scale as opposed to the 6-inch scale, so it really doesn't work with Mattel figures. Just to kind of give it a look at Marvel Legends, as you can see, again, these are taller than Marvel Legends. And then comparing him with Batman. Now Batman's on his base, so he is a bit, you know, taller because of that, just ever so slightly. But as you can see, he's still, I mean, Batman is very big. Not only is he bulky, but he is actually taller than the Superman figure, which I don't know if that's completely accurate. I would have actually probably made Superman slightly taller. However, I still think that it's good. I mean, so as you can see, he's a bit short next to this Batman. I would have made him taller, but it's certainly not too bad. I think that it works nicely, and he's pretty in scale, so that's very good. So as a whole, I really love this figure. I think that the articulation on him is better than the Batman figure. I think that the cape is just more fun to pose because it's a cloth. It's definitely more flexible than the Batman figure. And this figure is $5 cheaper. It's supposed to retail for $5 cheaper than Batman as well. So I think that these are quite good figures. I think that it's a great way for them to start out this new line of DC Collectibles movie figures. I really hope that they continue it in full force and really release a lot of characters. And I would hope that they put a special emphasis on the characters with capes, because again, that's that's something that's my favorite part of these figures is the capes. It's the one thing that's like completely unique to this series. I know there are other companies that do cloth capes with wires, but for me personally, I don't really have very many. I mean, Hot Toys very rarely does it, and they're about the only other company that I have that has figures with posable capes. Vision and Boba Fett are the only two that I have from them that have posable capes. So really do love these figures, and they're incredibly fun. Cannot wait for them to continue this series. I'm very much excited for Wonder Woman. I think that she'll look great as, you know, a member of the DC Trinity. So there you go. That's my video review of this DC Collectibles Films Premium line Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice Superman figure. Let me know what you guys think of the figure, and thanks so much for watching.